Hello everyone and welcome to episode 2 of the Tru-Turf Super Series. I'm very fortunate today to be speaking to the Superintendent of one of my favourite golf courses in the world, Nathan Bennett, who is at Royal Adelaide Golf Club in beautiful Adelaide, South Australia. Nathan, thanks for joining us today.
No problems, Nick. My pleasure.
Well, Adelaide, as I said, it's a wonderful golf course. I hear it's a little bit wet there for you today, which is probably welcome in some ways, although not for ladies' pennant. You know, it's a regular golf course. It's in the top number of golf courses in Australia, so it must be and you've been there now since I think about 2011, isn't it? So
that's right.
You've had a really a nice tenure there. It's probably a great place to work.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a wonderful place to work. You know, it's a bit unique and a bit has its own little quirky bits to it, but it is a really special place to work. It's been around a long time, so a lot of history, a lot of long-term members, and they all have a real strong association, a real love for the place, which is great, and that sort of reflects in the way the members deal with staff and the way they treat us, and it's just it's a wonderful place to work. Right.
So what got you started in turf? I think you've got a farming background from what I can see. Yep. There's no secrets these days on the internet.
Yep.
So
how
did you get into the turf industry?
I worked on a wheat farm, which I loved, and grew up on a farm. My parents are still there, so I love that, and I love the idea of being able to do something with growing things and being outdoors. And it's a bit easier on a golf course because you can manipulate the weather in a certain extent with the irrigation, and whereas a dry wheat farmer, you can't manipulate that. It is what it is. But yeah, so that's what got me into it. I wasn't a golfer. I didn't play golf really at all until I started working. Still don't play much golf, but got me into just being outdoors. Loving the I suppose the look of a golf course and how it presents. So that's what got me into it, and did some work experience at some good clubs and some great people. And then an opportunity arose when I finished year 12 and took the apprenticeship, and I've loved it ever since. So it's been wonderful. Doing
your apprenticeship, where did that land you? How did you start your journey through that apprenticeship?
So I did work experience at Murray Downs, which is where Richard Forsyth had built there, and I did work experience under him. He moved to Metro about 3 months later. I was then towards the end of year 12, and it was an apprenticeship opportunity available. So I grabbed that. Never wanted to live in Melbourne, but I love the opportunity, love the idea of working at a club like Metro. Obviously, it's a wonderful opportunity. So I worked there for about 8 years. Loved every minute of it. It was such an incredible place to work, but also an incredible group of guys to work with. Richie was an exceptional leader, as he still is, and to be able to have the guys that were under him and me be a part of those guys, which was great learning experience. And I couldn't have wished for a better start in my career working at a place like that and under some people that were there. So did that for about, as I said, 8 years, did my apprenticeship and then become a foreman there. And I worked along really closely with Dave Mace. So Dave Mace now is up in Brisbane, has just left Metro to go to Brisbane. So he's put some flippers on and some snorkels up there carrying on. So Dave and I worked pretty closely as foremen. And then from there, I moved on from there. So it was great opportunity, great club to start at.
Yeah. And Metro, as you're saying, a great club, some of the most finely tuned agronomy practices there in the world. I always see the fairways, they're a bit like carpet. That grounding, I suppose, in preparation of that facility for those members, they've got high expectations, but always delivered. That's, I suppose, really giving you a great start into your journey as a course superintendent.
Yeah, and that you're right there. That we did a lot of construction there, but it really is Metro's really focused on turf quality. And that's what they're hanging their hat on, which is great. So I had a really good, strong grounding there, and then left and went down to Moon Links under Lee Yan. And Lee was a part of the crew that was at Metro when I was there. So down to Lee and did some tournaments down there with him. Finished the growing of the Legends course, and then had 2 Aussie Opens down there under Lee, which was great. Different course. It was tournament stadium built course, coastal, windy, a really chalk and cheese compared to Metro, and the membership feel as well. But loved it. Loved being able to present the course for those 2 tournaments, but also open it and growing it in. So and had some residential parts of that as well. Left there, went to the Sands in Torquay, which was a bit of a mixture. It was a private course that was trying to grow. It had just been opened up. A lot more residents around the outside of the course. A fairly strong expectation from the owner and from the members that have come from some small clubs into that club that were really wanted to have the course at the next level. So that was really good learning experience. Lots of issues down there with the type of soil it was built on, the water quality, and all the bits and pieces that come with it. So you can't sometimes you often golf courses are built on the poorest bit of land, not the best bit of land. So that was the case down there. So, but had a great opportunity, great time there. Had some great staff there. Worked my way through. So I spent about another 5 years at the Sands, and then lucky enough to gain the superintendent's position over here at RA, and been here for about 10 and a half years. Seen a fair bit of change here in that time as well. Been an amazing experience over here as well. And, you know, you sort of take all that metropolitan, you know, pristine info or knowledge from there, and then the coastal field down at Moonlinks, and then the issues that come on with the Sands and what we try to do there, and sort of combine it all to try and get the best out of what we can get out of here. So that's how it's got me to this point, really.
That's a great journey, and to land at Royal Adelaide is an outstanding achievement for yourself and recognition for a lot of hard work. So, and that's it. Royal Adelaide, been around since the late 1800s. Few designers have had their touch on it. Certainly, Dr. Alison McKenzie at one stage as well. And I'm not sure who I think you're working with Doak at the moment. Is there a consultant architect at the moment?
Yeah, Doak's our designer here at the moment, our architect. So him and his associate. So we have Brian Slornick is doing most of the work. When he gets the opportunity to get out, it's pretty difficult at the moment with COVID and restrictions with getting in and out, but it's getting closer. We're hoping he can be out in the next month or two to just go over some stuff we want to work on. So there's nothing glaring that we need to be fixing, but we just want to be relevant and continue to just fine tune some of the stuff that need to be done. And some of that thing is just cutting lines or bunkering improvements, or just lots of little things we want to keep working on. But I think if you sit back and think you've nailed it and don't do anything, I think that's when other clubs continue to move forward, and we just want to be at that pointy end. So I just keep working on the poorest bit and just keep taking the weakest bits out and improving those if we can. Yeah.
So is that the sort of play when you have architects in play, you know, how much of your preparation focuses around keeping the true sense of the architecture, or the semblance of the architecture for Royal Adelaide?
Yeah, we do. We're strong on trying to present it as traditional as possible. So we try and improve turf quality. Turf quality is always really important, and playability for members. And you want members walking away, you know, the old story, if your greens are great, everything else is, you know, good. But if your greens are no good, then that's when the complaints come. So we just try and make sure the turf quality is really good, playing surfaces are great, and then work our way out from there. But we do have a strong focus on trying to be traditional as possible and not jazz it up too much. We would try and have it as minimalist, exposing some sand, just trying to, you know, and we are a links course with very few trees in most of the course, to try and encourage that rough that gets out there. And that's what we're trying to present, that kind of course that is a bit different to the most of the tracks over here. You know, over here there's a lot of trees and a lot of some great golf courses, but we were just trying to be a bit different to everyone else. And we look at a lot of the old photos and see all the sandy areas and all the waste areas, just trying to continue to be as it was designed when Alistair McKenzie was here. You know, his little stamp on it, very few trees, a lot of sand. That's what we're trying to produce where there is the sand anyway. So that's what we're trying.
I saw an image on the Instagram account for ROGC Greens the other day that showed the difference. I can't remember the exact date but there was a time range that showed
87 till this year.
And it's huge. People are looking at it, you know, it'd be a good one to view. Certainly the way in which I suppose turf qualities have been improved over that time. I suppose irrigation's got a lot to play with it.
Oh, absolutely.
Adelaide can be a harsh environment sometimes in the middle of summer. So,
well, they say it's the driest state in the driest continent. So it's, you know, we average about, I think, 400 millimetres a year. So Queensland get that in the rain a bit, but that's all we get a year pretty much. So, it can be pretty brutal. So, and which we like, because we can, you know, without getting too much rain, we've got plenty of water, so we can manipulate that environment by putting out water where we need to and being really accurate with where we put it out. We don't want to water anything that's not on playing surface. If it's not a playing surface, we don't water it. So that's how we run with.
And that's a wonderful place to be if you've got the ability to be able to do that. You talked about water and being the driest state, the driest continent. So you said you had a good water supply. How do you manage that? Is it a mixture of harvesting, or do you just have a good...
Both, So we have bore water, so a great supply of water, really a large aquifer, but we also recharge our system. So we have about a large catchment area between here and the city, and a lot of that water runs through, comes through about a 3-foot pipe. When it rains like it is now, it's solid for days. So we go through our wetlands and we inject it. So we inject anywhere between 150 to 200 meg down into the bores.
Right.
And then pull that back out during summer. So we have our allocation, and on top of our allocation, we also have what we inject. And that water injection not only gives us more water, but it also means our water quality is better, because before we put this in, the water quality was getting quite salty, whereas now we don't get above probably maybe 500 parts per million for that amount of water we have. So we're pretty much, in theory, we're pretty much drought proof. We have endless amounts of water. With we couldn't use the water we have allocated anyway. That's put it. So we have which means we can adjust irrigation without thinking, we haven't got enough water. We can irrigate where we need to, and we try and be as strong or as accurate as we can with just watering the surfaces, but we can adjust those where we need to either expand surface or bring them in, whatever it is, for the designer, rather than the designer being manipulated or constrained by water amounts we have. We can do what we want and we can fit it in. So
it's a great story of sustainability as well. Then if you're able to harvest that water, put it back into the aquifer and keep it turning around, it's good for the environment as well.
Absolutely, because that water would normally be going to the ocean, which would be, imagine the contaminant. So we have a sediment pond, the first pond that it goes to, and every second or third year we clean that out. We get about 150 tonne of leaf litter, just organic matter, you name it, it gets in there, and we dig it all out and get rid of it. And that would normally be in the ocean. So we collect that, clean the water, goes into and clean all the greases and all the stuff that comes out, goes through the reeds. The reeds clean it, then we inject it. It's tested regularly before it goes down. So that water would normally get out. So it's not, which means when it's a double-edged sword, it's helping us, but it's also helping the environment by us not letting the water get out, and we're able to use less of the water that's in the aquifer. So it helps other people in the aquifer because we're not putting so much pressure on it.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. And you do talk about those changing climatic conditions, and I think Royal Adelaide looks its best sometimes in summer when you've got the brown wispy grasses in the rough and those sort of things highlighting by the fairways and the greens.
Yeah, so we, even though that class is on the sand belt, we're probably only half on the sand, the other half's on heavy clay. So I don't like today when it's wet, it can be pretty muddy. So during winter, we don't shine very well. We're pretty, the course can be pretty average come winter time, but we can't control that. It is what it is. We try and do as much as we can with drainage, but we can't drain anywhere because it's flat. So and when it gets into sand dunes, it's a whole different ball game. But we are really seasonal here. Where during summer we get that burnt off rough, and we get during spring we have the long green rough and it dries off, and then come winter time it's a bit thin and muddy, and we have common cooch on fairways. So some of those commons are awesome during summer, but not so awesome during winter. Worms pop up, the worm castings become an issue, but the members are understanding of that they're in a belief, as I am, that we shouldn't be out killing worms for the sake of having a clean fairway. So we try and balance that out a little bit. And they're really good at that. They understand. Some years are worse than others. We've had some really bad wet years, which creates a bit of a stir in the membership about what we can do about it. And then we have some normal wet years where it's not a big deal. So it's just about educating members on that part of it. So, but the course does change a lot in seasons. A lot of clubs don't, but we do. We're quite seasonal with how we present as well.
And so from that seasonal aspect, as you're saying, you've got heavy clay, you've got some great sand as well. How does that then frame the work for you from an agronomy point of view, thinking about how you might need to manage the grasses on different sand types or soil types? Yeah,
so we're lucky all the greens are built out of the one sand. So greens are pretty standard. They're all treated the same, obviously. Fairways definitely. Agronomy, not so much, because we're really little and often with our fertiliser, trying to reduce the amount of thatch or any organic matter build up. We have a mixture of commons and some Santarana, so we're mindful of the Santarana taking a lot more maintenance, so we're trying to keep that at a minimum if we can. But coming to, we do a lot of aerating during the spring and autumn, trying to open areas up and trying to get some air in there. And then comes wintertime, we probably don't try and open up as much because it only gets in probably that 100 mil and water sits there anyway and becomes really boggy. So it's that sort of stuff. We have issues with POA control on those heavier areas as well with some of the chemicals now. The chemistry is not working as well as it used to. So having a hard time to control the POA in those areas. But in terms of treating areas differently, probably not a lot. We try and make sure that everything's the same, and we're getting better and better at that. We're a lot more uniformity than there was. We're getting better each year at trying different things, and our renovation practices in renovating fairways, trying to do areas that I suppose the sandy areas get better growth, but probably don't get as thick. Whereas the common, that sort of heavy areas don't grow as well, but when they grow during summer, they'll take off and get quite spongy. So we just try and manipulate where we renovate heavier and where we don't. So it's a bit of a balancing act in those areas. So,
what grass are you running on the greens at Royal Adelaide?
Apart from the power, we run a mixture of 4 bent grasses. So we have G2, Seaside, Highland, and Pencross. So a mixture of 4, which has been great for the last sort of 15 years, which we continue with. The issue we have 2 of those grasses don't exist anymore. We can't get them. So we're trying to do some more trials now on when we do a seeding of a green, we're going to be able to do it with still 4 varieties because we want that old school feel where they colonize and become patchy. That's what we want, but we can't with 2 of them that we've lost. So we've done some trials now with some different variations on one of our chipping greens just to see whether we can get that some other variations we can throw in, and we may in time oversow our existing greens with the new varieties to try and make sure they're all the same when we do rebuild one. But I think back in the day people used to oversow greens every year when they renovated, and that's probably why greens were all different varieties, and whatever grass was available that year is what they would seed with. Whereas that's probably the field we're going with, trying to create that multiple appearance rather than and the uniform greens look great, but it's probably not the field we want here. We want it to be natural, and we want to continue with that multiple appearance. So the 4 different, they're the 4 varieties we're running with. Probably not the best varieties out there, but they're the 4 they chose probably 15 years ago, and they work well. And I think every grass variety has got their good and bad points. I think doesn't matter what you've got, you just got to work out how to manage that variety. We could always throw them out and put a new one in, but then you got to work how to manage that one. So we just stick with what we've got, and away we go.
And as you said, I think you've got to look at what works for the venue and how that works. There's no point putting something in that's not going to work. So if that works, then you run with it and manage it the best way you can. So
definitely.
A few unique things about Royal Adelaide, of course, is the train line running all the way through the middle of the golf course, and I think it's been used as the station's been put in for past Australian Opens.
All sorts of stuff.
So how do you manage that? Obviously it creates its own risks and hazards, I suppose.
Well, that's probably our biggest issue is the risk. It's not so much, there's no management golf course wise. It's just about staff and golfers. And it's really important to us that we continually remind staff, because you become a bit complacent with it. And you're driving, you go to cross it, you always got to make sure you're looking both ways. So that even it does about 50 kilometres. So it's not fast, but it still sneaks up on you pretty quick. So, and it goes through every 15 minutes. It's not as if it's a once a day. It goes through every 15 minutes. Staff there's 5 crossings. We would cross it, our shed's right beside it. So we cross it a lot. Becomes an issue with more for the golfer too. And we have shotgun starts, and all of a sudden there's 130 players at the clubhouse, and the train line's only 10 metres from the clubhouse. So, all of a sudden you get 150 players that all want to spread out across the golf course, and they all just like Brown's cows, and away they go. So you got to try and control them until the train goes past them, let them go. And a lot of people want to get close and get photos, and the train drivers get really, really testy on that, because all these golfers are all getting photos, and kids are putting coins on the coins in the train line again. All that stuff still happens. So it's trying to manage that. And we obviously we want to make sure everyone's safe, but also the last thing we want is for them to say, we've got to put a fence up, because that would be, it would be brutal on the golf course. Putting a fence up really does change everything. And then having boom gates or chicanes where we across the crossings would be a disaster for us. So it's really important that we love the train line. We want to make sure we have it, so we to make sure we try and mitigate the risk of anyone getting too close or getting near it. So it's a bit of a catch-22.
Yeah.
Have I still got you there? My phone's just rang.
Yes,
it's a bit of a catch-22 that making sure that's still happening and make sure it's still working okay, and that there isn't an issue for that train coming through and getting too close to any of us.
No, that's right. Certainly a unique one, and want to keep it that way. 2020, you held the Women's Australian Open. That was, I think, almost the last time it was run from a COVID perspective, and going to be rejoining with the Men's Australian Open in the Sandbelt, which will be quite a unique format when it's next run. But tournament preparation, obviously there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, and holding a major event like the Women's Australian Open, I think it's co-sanctioned with the LPGA, so must have been a lot of work to get there, but a very satisfying thing once it's all done.
Yeah, it is. We had one in 2017, and then we did the 220. That was only, I think, when we had that, within 4 weeks after that, then the world shut down pretty much. So it's a great experience to go through, and you do a few of them, and you understand what's needed, and you sort of lead from that. You work out the end date and work your way forward and work out when you need to start doing things. So it's a really good experience to be a part of, personally, but also with the staff and the members. The members get to experience how a tournament's showcased, and it's their golf course, and they get really proud of it. So I think it's great to have, we put a huge amounts of work goes into it, and you sort of touch wood, you have the right weather. That's what a lot of it comes down to, the right weather, and it culminates right to that end date on that Sunday afternoon when it gets showcased off. So it's really, it's a big reward. A lot of hours and time away from family goes into it to get it. But it's great. It really is a great event to be a part of. Any televised event, but whether it be golf or other events out there, it's a wonderful thing to be a part of. And I think the industry is really supportive. We have a lot of volunteers come and help out. People want to get involved that would not necessarily have an opportunity to be a part of an event at their course. So we would have maybe 15 to 20 volunteers come and help out, and then that then comes down to the industry suppliers supplying machines to help out, and all the little bits and pieces that go on, little things like you sort of don't think about, but supplying uniforms and supplying meals for those people, and then supplying the facility to be able to facilitate them sitting down at once to have a meal, and all that stuff goes on. So it's having the industry really rally together and help provide that. And it is, even though it's here, I think it's a really good thing for the industry to have those events, to for people to have an experience. And we haven't had them for a few years, and it's going to be great having this one in Victoria, which is going to be really unique, having the men and women together. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes with crowds and spectators between the two. But it's great. It's a great initiative. See where it lands with having that scenario. But I think it'll be great to see golf events back on the rotation. It's been a while.
Absolutely.
It's going to take a little while, I think, before we get international guys coming out readily like they were, but it'll happen. Once we get one or two under our belt, it'll take off again. But it's a wonderful thing to be a part of, and not a lot of people get to do it. So when you do it, I never take it for granted, because I've done a few of them, and it really it's a wonderful experience. As I said, it's hard work, but it's paid off at the end when it's on TV.
Yeah, absolutely. And from a preparation point of view, not just for tournaments, but for everyday use, how does greens rolling play a part for you in your course preparation?
Oh, it's huge for us. We roll more than we cut. So we, like all less surfaces, we try and our minimalist approach, small amount of nitrogen, if any, just to keep them ticking along. So we probably cut twice a week all year round. At most, maybe 3 during, if we get a bit of a growth spurt through some weather, but Mondays and Fridays, rest of the time we roll. So we roll Saturdays, every Saturday, we roll every Wednesday, we roll Sundays if we need to, and probably a Thursday. So our maintenance regime is we dust every 2 to 3 weeks during that sort of September through April period. So we dust on the Monday, and then we roll after that, because obviously we don't want the sand going through the mower. So we roll. But we also tine greens. So our greens get tined every week. We send 2 pro cores and a verti drain out, and we tine greens, all of them every week, and then we roll them on the Wednesday. So that's on the Wednesday morning, we roll straight away. So members don't know we do it, or they see the machines but oblivious to what happens. So by having the rolls and the rolling, flattening those greens out after they're tined, we wouldn't be able to do that without these rollers. So the rollers produce that true firm surface once they've been tined, and then my roll on the Thursday after it as well, and then we'll roll on the Saturday to produce another true surface. Cutting is great, and cutting finds a leaf up and gives us a really great surface, but the rolling gives us that true firm surface that we chase, which what all members chase really. So so that's our rolling is probably the most, I would say, for preparation, the most important tool we have. Cutting is great, but rolling is the bit that gets us the surface we need. And you can always speed up a green with another roll or whatever it is, but it does definitely produce that true surface, is what all superintendents pretty much chase.
Yeah, and you've been a Tru-Turf user for quite a while. Why have you chosen Tru-Turf to be the roller of choice for yourselves?
Well, I think it's tried and tested. I've used Tru-Turf for the last probably. I can't remember what time we used it. The old smooth roll, which they're a beast when you got hold of them. When they were new, they were probably good, but then they become a dinosaur. But I reckon for the last 20 years, or more than that, maybe 25 years. So just because the ease at which they are, the usability of them, the way they just flip over, connect up, they tow around. With the electric ones, which is what we have now, they're quiet. They are simple to use, and that's why it's easy to use. They're easy to use, easy to get a young guy trained up on it, to get him or her on the roller, and away they go, and it just produces a great surface. So, and I think keeping it simple is what it is. They're pretty simple machines, and they do a great job, and that's probably why they've been tried and tested for a long time. And when it ain't broke, why fix it? So.
Correct. Now, heading into winter, about to start winter, I suppose, what's the next focus for you at Royal Adelaide?
Just those odd jobs that we don't get to do during the winter, the summer period. So we're back into the vegetation stuff and, the old stuff, bunkers, paths, tree work, all that gear that we work on now, probably some drainage works where we need to. These are the times you sort of all of a sudden kick yourself and didn't do your drainage in summer because we're starting to show up now. But yeah, just some of those things. We don't tend to do big drainage tasks because we got nowhere to drain it to. So we just tend to dig big sump pits. And sometimes we just use large augers and auger, go down 2 meters into the groundwater and put some sand in and away they go. So we do a lot of those during the winter period. But our focus now is primarily just those odd jobs we can't do during the summer period. So a lot of shed work does it today, back in the shed doing the cleaning up and painting and all that sort of stuff, and then splitting wood, tree line cleaning up around the fences and all that sort of stuff. Lots of odd jobs that sometimes get a bit monotonous after a while, but they need to be done. You just can't do it when they're busy. Yeah, that's right. And I know you don't get a lot of time to play, but Royal Adelaide's got such a fantastic mix of holes out there. Is there one place on the course that you find is your favourite? Oh yeah, there's some great holes out there, but I was asked this a little while ago on another sort of podcast. It's we have a rotunda sits on top of the course, which sees a lot of it, and you see then the sunrise and the sunset from up there. You can see the city, the beaches out. You can't see the water, but you can, it's not far away, the coastline. It's a really good spot. You can see probably 2/3 of the golf course from up there, the clubhouse, all the open links field with train running through. So up there on top of the hill, it's a beautiful spot, and you can see about 6 holes, 6 green complexes all coming into that one spot, so you can see all the different play. If you're watching a tournament, great spot to watch it from up there. So it's pretty special, and a lot of people don't think about it. They play golf and they walk past and continue chasing the white ball around. But when you get an opportunity to stop and have a look and have a think about it, it's a pretty good spot. So it's nice. I think it is a good time for reflection if you get up to the top of the hill, especially before you tackle the par 3 down the hill, which is quite a challenging hole. It is. Maybe a chance to reassess your round. Yes, I reckon you might be working out whether you continue to play or whether you should pack it away. But yeah, it is. It's a great spot. And as you said, there's a few holes there that can be pretty brutal in that area. So can reassess your golfing ability when you get to that point. Yeah. Well, Nathan, thank you very much for your time today. It's been a great pleasure to talk to you on the Tru-Turf Super Series. Wish you all the best, and hopefully might see you at the ASMA conference coming up in the next month. And good luck for the rest of your career at Royal Adelaide. Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it. Thanks, mate. Cheers. Bye. Thank you.